Inside Hockey, brought to you by Viagra.
Pleased to be joined by the president GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brian Burke. Brian, thank you. Listen, you said Monday there was no discussion of a coaching change. By the end of the game Tuesday night at Air Canada Centre, you said, I will not put Ron Wilson through that again. The cruelty of the crowd on your coach, maybe the crosshairs of the media trade deadline day on your players, and the millstone of 67 or not having been in the playoffs. These are all real concerns, but they do sound to me a little bit, Brian, like they might be making excuses for the players, an opportunity to absolve them of a little responsibility. What do you think about that?
Well, we're not looking for excuses for our players. These are real things. The trade deadline is a millstone for the players. No question about it, to the point where we're discussing having a different trade line, an internal trade deadline for next year, much as we do at Christmas time. But that's part of playing in Toronto. There's no use whining about it. And as I said, the crowd's entitled to boo. If you buy a ticket, as long as you're not saying something that you're not supposed to say, if you want to cheer, you cheer. You want to boo, you boo.
Well, Wayne Gretzky said it's very real in Canadian cities, but he also said a player can only think about winning. And you see what I'm saying about if you give that sort of impression that these factors, these external factors matter, will players not somehow see that as a built-in excuse?
No, I don't think so. We try and identify players. Our organizational motto is no complaints, no excuses. So these are noting things that are real things. For example, every team we play typically comes in with 5 to 8 or 9 Ontario kids, and they try to play the game of their life in front of their family and friends. We're stuck with that too. Not an excuse, it's a fact. So I don't think they're excuses at all, but I think to say that these things don't have impact, I think is crazy.
That's coming up a lot lately. Vancouver, the province reported that, I believe it was, or maybe it was the other. Anyway, they talked a little bit about the lack of Ontario players. I heard Mike Johnson say it. I've heard Gord Miller say it. Grapes certainly has thought it. What about that? How come you don't have any?
We don't care where players are born. We try and identify good hockey players. I think fans in Toronto are a lot more interested in seeing a winning team than they are in looking at the passports and seeing where guys were born.
But you do see the argument there. If it works for the other team coming in with Ontario guys, why wouldn't it for you?
You can ask our scouts, Ron, since you didn't seem to listen to my answer. I don't tell the players or the scouts that we need to find players that are born in a particular area.
Right.
I don't think people would mind if our team was competitive.
I just thought it might energize your team to have a few of them. And just staying with that for 1 second, Kadri, he went down at the start of February, which has been the brutal month. When you had all these offers, let's say Clark MacArthur for a first rounder, why not move a guy like him and bring up Kadri again?
Because Nazem Kadri has still got to change some things in his game before he's going to be able to compete at the NHL level. He's got great offensive ability, but he's still a high-risk player even this late in the season. And I'm not interested in taking a step back. We wanted to see if we can get into the playoffs with this group. We wanted to not take assets we'd have to wait 3 years for, and I decided not to move any of those guys. We had 4 offers of first-round picks for players, but that means that we take a step back and wait 3 years, and it's not a great draft.
One more thing about, we'll get to the lineup, but back to Monday and Tuesday. On the trade deadline show with TSN, you were talking to James, and we'll roll in. You were working on 3-on-2s. There was a live camera at the MasterCard Center, and there was a sequence of 5 3-on-2s where the forward units went offside 3 times, and the 4th almost offside, and it kind of broke down. So, little thing, big thing, of interest to you at all?
Well, I think from our perspective, this is a team that 2.5 weeks ago was in 8th spot, and I think 3 points ahead of the 9th spot team. So this is a team that had played well, had a great start, had dominated at times. We've had 7 wins in 3 of the months and only 4 in the others, and the other 2 months, and those are the ones that killed us. But I've never had a team fall off a cliff like this. I've never once had a team that was in contention and that went into free fall just out of the blue. So it's been bewildering for our players, it's been bewildering for our coaches, and it's been bewildering for me.
One thing I do know is Calgary, when they went to the final in '86, lost 11 in a row in February and got all the way, just about got it done. And I certainly remember Tampa won only 4 of 20 the year they won the Cup in '04, so you can hang your hat on that. Joffrey Lupul had the comment earlier in the year about Randy Carlyle, and it's understandable because Lupul, everybody he's been with, except with Randy, he's made players better. Briere was 2 times better offensively with him than without. Mike Richards 3 times better with him than without. Kessel's twice as good with him than without. But for some reason, Randy didn't see it in Joffrey Lupul. How come?
Well, the right side was pretty crowded in Anaheim. You got Corey Perry, and then you got Bobby Ryan. And they didn't feel that Joffrey Lupul could play the left side. Also, you've got to remember, this is a player who was, a lot of people thought he was done playing. with the serious infections that followed his back surgery. This is a guy who, at one point, they were warned he might not play again. And that's a team that was trying to be competitive right away. We felt we could wait, and we felt Joffrey would bounce back. And so it was a smart move on our part, if you will. But I understand why Anaheim made that move. And in this case, it was pure and simple that Randy Carlyle felt that Joffrey Lupul couldn't play the left side. And he's admitted publicly that that was a mistake. Obviously, Joffrey Lupul can't play the left side. But I'll tell you a quick story. When we made the deal with Edmonton for Chris Pronger, and they said they wanted Ladislav Smid and Joffrey Lupul, our whole staff was on board to make that move except Randy. And Randy said to me, he said, if you trade Joffrey Lupul, he's going to haunt you. He's going to bite you right in the butt. And he was right.
Wish we had more time. I'd like to ask you about the roster. We've discussed the checking line, and I said Scotty Bowman felt that they got away from playing the checking line enough in Anaheim, but I don't have time for that. I'd rather deal with the centers. The lack of a number one center. You bring in Connolly at over $4 million, but he's on the checking line, which seems a little odd to me, Brian. You've got 2.9 in Grabowski, and you've got $1.5 million in Tyler Bozak. Every team that's successful has at least one horse in the middle that's 5 or more, and certainly the great teams have 2 guys making 5 or more up the middle. You've got to address that, don't you think?
Well, from our perspective, this is I liken putting a team together like a game of chess. The moves that present themselves and that make you better, where you acquire players, even though it doesn't set the team up exactly as you'd like it to, but you're trading assets to get better players. Sometimes you don't have the pieces on the board that you'd like in the sequence that you'd like them. But we've got some positional needs we have to address in the summertime, and we intend to do that. The center play has been, the biggest, the hardest part for us. The biggest absence in the center for us has been that Mikhail Grabowski had such a poor start, but he's been terrific the second half.
Wish we had more. Always fair, Brian. Thanks for that, and good luck tonight.
Okay, thank you.
President GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brian Burke, on Scotiabank Hockey Tonight.